Imagine walking into a store with a backpack full of money, not because you're rich, but because that's what you need just to buy a loaf of bread. Sounds crazy, right? Well, that's the reality of hyperinflation. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why it happens and why it's one of the scariest things that can happen to any economy. Let's start with the basics. Regular inflation is something most of us already know about. It's when prices go up a little bit each year. Your favorite coffee might cost 50 cents more than it did 5 years ago. That's normal inflation, and it's actually not a bad thing when it's controlled. A small amount of inflation means the economy is growing and healthy. But hyperinflation? That's a completely different monster. Hyperinflation is when prices don't just go up a little bit each year. They go up every single day, sometimes every single hour. Think about this for a second. You wake up in the morning and a banana costs $1. By lunchtime, that same banana costs $2. By dinner, it's $4. And the next morning, it's $8. That's the terrifying reality of hyperinflation. Now here's where things get really interesting. Hyperinflation doesn't just mean expensive groceries. It means your entire savings account becomes worthless almost overnight. All that money you've been putting away for years? Gone. Not stolen, not lost, just worth absolutely nothing. That retirement fund? Basically monopoly money. So how does something this catastrophic actually happen? Let's break it down in the simplest way possible. Everything starts with the government and something called the printing press. Now, governments don't literally have a giant machine that prints money anymore, but they can create money digitally. When a country's in trouble, maybe they're in massive debt or they need to pay for a war or a crisis, the government might think they have a brilliant solution. Just print more money. Problem solved, right? Wrong. So incredibly wrong. Here's the thing about money. It only has value because we all agree it has value. Think about it. A dollar bill is just a piece of paper with some ink on it. The only reason you can trade it for food or clothes or anything else is because everyone agrees that piece of paper is worth something. But what happens when there's suddenly way more of that paper floating around? Let's use a simple example. Imagine there's a small island with 100 people and 100 gold coins. Each person has one coin, and everyone agrees one coin can buy one fish from the fisherman. Now imagine someone finds a machine that creates gold coins, and suddenly there are 1,000 coins on the island. Does each person suddenly have 10 times more buying power? Nope. The fisherman isn't going to sell his fish for just one coin anymore because everyone has so many coins now. He'll want 10 coins for one fish because the coins aren't special anymore. They're everywhere. That's exactly what happens with printed money. When a government floods the economy with new money, each unit of that money becomes less valuable. It's basic supply and demand, but with currency. But here's where hyperinflation really kicks into gear. Once people realize their money is losing value, they panic, and panic makes everything worse. People start spending their money as fast as they possibly can because they know it'll be worth less tomorrow. Why save money when saving it means watching it become worthless? So everyone rushes to buy things immediately. This creates a vicious cycle. More spending drives prices up even faster. Higher prices make people panic more. More panic leads to more spending, and around it goes, spiraling completely out of control. Think about getting paid at your job. In normal times, you get your paycheck every 2 weeks or once a month, and that's fine. But during hyperinflation, workers demand to be paid every single day, sometimes twice a day. Why? Because if they wait 2 weeks to get paid, that money will be worth half as much by the time they receive it. Some companies during severe hyperinflation would actually give employees breaks in the middle of the day so they could rush out and spend their morning wages before prices went up again in the afternoon. Real historical examples make this even clearer. In Germany during the early 1920s, things got so bad that people would take wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy basic groceries. There are famous photographs of children playing with stacks of money like building blocks because the bills were literally worthless. Some people would burn money in their fireplaces because it was cheaper than buying wood. Let that sink in. Money was so worthless that burning it for heat was the most practical use for it. In Zimbabwe during the 2000s, inflation got so extreme that the government printed a $100 trillion bill. Yes, trillion with a T. But even with a $100 trillion note in your pocket, you couldn't buy much. Prices were doubling every single day at the peak. Store owners would change price tags multiple times throughout the day just to keep up. More recently, Venezuela has been experiencing devastating hyperinflation. People have reported losing dramatic amounts of weight, not by choice, but because food became so expensive that meals became a luxury. Life savings evaporated. Pensions became worthless. People who worked their entire lives and saved responsibly found themselves with nothing. Now, let's talk about why governments let this happen. It's not like leaders wake up one day and decide to destroy their economy. It usually starts with a problem that seems solvable. Maybe there's a war and the government needs money fast. Maybe there's a natural disaster. Maybe corruption has drained government funds. The government needs cash, but they can't just raise taxes high enough because people would revolt. They can't borrow enough money because other countries don't trust them to pay it back. So they take what seems like the easy way out: print money. At first, it works. The government pays its bills, soldiers get their salaries, things seem fine. But the consequences start creeping in. Prices start rising. People notice their money doesn't go as far. The government needs even more money to pay for things because prices are higher now, so they print more money, which causes more inflation, which requires more money printing. It becomes a trap with no easy escape. Another major factor is confidence. Money works because people have confidence in it. The moment people lose faith in their currency, the whole system can collapse incredibly fast. If you don't believe your money will be worth anything tomorrow, you'll try to get rid of it today. This mass loss of confidence can turn regular inflation into hyperinflation almost overnight. Foreign currency becomes king during hyperinflation. In countries experiencing this crisis, people desperately try to convert their local money into dollars, euros, or any stable foreign currency. They want something that will hold its value. Black markets emerge, where foreign currency trades at massive premiums. Having access to stable currency becomes a matter of survival. Some people turn to physical assets. Gold, silver, real estate, even canned food becomes more valuable than cash. At least these things have inherent value or usefulness. Some families would buy appliances or furniture not because they needed them, but because physical goods held value better than paper money. The social consequences of hyperinflation are devastating beyond just economics. Crime rates skyrocket. Desperate people do desperate things. Society's fabric starts tearing apart. Families are destroyed as savings disappear. Elderly people on fixed pensions suffer tremendously. Education suffers because teachers can't afford to work for worthless wages. Healthcare collapses for the same reason. An entire generation can be scarred by the experience. So, can hyperinflation be stopped once it starts? The answer is yes, but it's incredibly painful. The solution usually requires completely restructuring the currency, often by introducing a brand new currency altogether and declaring the old one worthless. Governments have to stop printing money immediately, which means making hard choices about what gets funded and what doesn't. They need to restore confidence, which might mean bringing in international help and oversight. Interest rates often need to skyrocket to make people want to save money instead of spending it immediately. What can regular people do to protect themselves? Diversification is key. Don't keep all wealth in one currency, especially if warning signs appear. Pay attention to what governments are doing with monetary policy. Learn to recognize the early warning signs, like rapidly increasing government debt, excessive money printing, or political instability. Understanding basic economics isn't just academic, it's practical survival knowledge. The good news is that hyperinflation is relatively rare, especially in developed countries with strong institutions and independent central banks. Countries like the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and most of Europe have systems designed specifically to prevent this kind of catastrophe. Central banks in these countries are independent from political pressure and have strict mandates to control inflation. However, that doesn't mean it's impossible. No country is completely immune. That's why understanding hyperinflation matters even if you live somewhere stable. Knowledge is protection. Understanding how money works, what gives it value, and what can destroy that value makes anyone a smarter citizen and better prepared for whatever economic challenges might come. The lesson here isn't to panic or to distrust all currency. The lesson is to understand the delicate balance that makes modern economies work. Money is trust made tangible. When that trust breaks down, the consequences can be absolutely catastrophic. Hopefully, this knowledge helps make sense of economic news, understand monetary policy decisions, and appreciate the systems that keep everyday currency stable and reliable.